Hey everybody, welcome to Total Acre Live. Today we're going to be talking about making the most of your in-season fungicide applications on corn and soybeans. My name is Dan Adcock. I'm a technical seed agronomist with WinField United in Southern Illinois and Southern Indiana. I've got Dr. Jason Haegele with me. He's in his office in Illinois. Looks like it's maybe a little bit cooler there, but basically what we're going to do, we're going to talk about 5 or 6 different things, kind of hit on a few things that we probably need to be thinking about because it is application time for in-season fungicide. And really, kind of start with the opportunity. We've got a little bit different opportunity right now than what we've had in the past couple of years because of the commodity prices. So we'll start with that, and then talk about using the data. What options do we have, and what data is out there to help us make an informed decision to get the best ROI for that money we are spending. And then the next thing would be, kind of that timing of the application, what that is the best dollar spent. How do I get the best bang for my buck? And then, like out there in today's market, and we've got a lot of older after or off market or off patent products, and then some new, more novel products that are out there that have really kind of changed the game on how we're putting fungicides into our crop. So the next thing would be pairing products. Basically, is there anything else we can put in with that crop? If we're already making a pass for the fungicide, is there anything else we can put in there with it? And there's a lot of different options there that Jason will talk through. And then lastly, we'll talk about Impact RX, which is something that's fairly new to our system. And really what it's about is it's using WinField United's understanding of data usage and how we kind of combine the economics and agronomics to get a good solution, not just on the fungicide application, but all in all as we're making decisions. So let's kind of go back and we'll kick it off there with the opportunity. And the first part of this is obvious. We've got I think I looked this morning. It was 550 or 560 on new crop stuff. So we're at a level on new crop corn that we haven't been in several years. So we've got the opportunity to have a lot more profitable acre with that fungicide. On top of that, not just the high commodity, but we've also, for the most part, got a pretty good start on the crop. We were able to get in relatively early. I get it. We're going to a big audience today, and there's some pockets of the world that are getting pretty hot and dry or have been hot and dry. Some of them are actually fairly wet. There's a couple bands that went through Illinois and Indiana and Ohio that have really soaked things. But all in all, we had a pretty good start. So let's take advantage of the combination that we actually got in at a decent time this year. We've got high commodity prices. So let's use some data. Let's use the information that's out there to take advantage of this opportunity we were given. The second part of that opportunity is, and this number kind of blew my mind. We were on a call back in March, and we were talking about how the total number of acres that are actually applied with fungicide. And it's a lot lower than I thought. There's actually about 76 to 78% of the acres, corn and beans in the U.S. that do not have a fungicide applied in season. So that's a number for more acres to be sprayed, not just the acres that are already getting it with the higher commodity prices as an opportunity. So let's take advantage of the opportunity we've got. The second part that I'm going to talk about is using the data. So we've got a slide here that kind of shows what we've been doing over the last few years, and it's really what I want you to focus on is that part that's circled there, the response to fungicide. You'll notice from 2015 through 2020, we've got a lot of data that's basically it's given us 6 years worth of information with thousands and thousands of data points feeding this. So there's kind of 2 ways to look at it. There's the macro level when we step back and say, okay, on that 6-year average, what did we average out of the 6 years we've done this? And it's just pick a hybrid at random. Basically it averaged out to about 13.5 bushels. So when you look at 13.5 bushels, say times 550, all in all, just on average, you're going to get about $75 back out of that application. But really, what we're gearing towards and what we want you guys to look at is the actual hybrid by fungicide or fungicide by hybrid interaction, and really more importantly the variability that comes with that. So when we dive into this at a micro level, look specifically at 2020, the range was from the lowest responding hybrid was just shy of 4 bushels. So there was a product out there that when we put an in-season fungicide application on it, it only gained us 4 bushel. But there was also a product in there that gained us 25 bushel. So when you look at that 25 minus, 21 bushel difference, you're talking at 550, that's getting up into that $115, $120 difference simply by saying, all right, do all hybrids act the same with the same application? They obviously don't. So, that's a $120 decision is essentially what we're saying, or somewhere in between there. So let's make sure we take advantage of the data that's out there. And also, while we're kind of talking about this, we've got nitrogen data that shows us basically 10 years worth of data. So, I know this is a conversation, but right now what's happening is we're putting fungicide out, we're putting extra nitrogen on the crop over the top. So we've got a lot of that data that's stored up. We've actually got 4 more years of nitrogen by hybrid interaction than we do. There's a ton of data out there. So let's take advantage of the opportunity, take advantage of the data that's in front of us to use. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Jason. Jason, I will say I've known for a long time that you were smarter than me, but not just because you've got doctor in front of your name, but because it looks like you're sitting in a nice air condition. I'm dripping sweat. It's about 90 degrees and 85% humidity. So I maybe chose poorly today on where I was gonna do this from. So I'll turn it over to Jason.
All right, Dan. Well, thanks for that introduction. I'm sorry to see you sweating out there in the field, but that is some good-looking corn there behind you. What kind of diseases are you seeing out there in the field right now?
I was here earlier taking some notes, and I did notice some gray leaf spot is probably the most prevalent. There is a little bit of northern, but I only found two hybrids that actually had any northern on them. I will say the big thing I noticed is when I walked from the corn on corn block, or actually out of the corn on soybean block into the corn on corn block, the gray leaf spot blew up quite a bit. So I think you guys that are in corn on corn territory, or that's a normal situation for you, probably need to be paying attention to that. It was noticeably different.
Sure. Well, the reason I asked, Dan, is it never ceases to amaze me as an agronomist how different 1 year can be from another, and even within a state as large as Illinois, how different conditions can be from one part of the state to another. About a week ago, I was talking about the impacts of dry weather, or the potential impacts of dry weather, and then suddenly it started raining, and we've been inundated with rain here in central Illinois for about the last week, and it's raining here again today. And so, one of the points I want to make, key points during this conversation, is that fungicides as part of our crop plan for both corn and soybeans, really helps us to plan for wet conditions, which oftentimes lead to disease, as well as those dry conditions, under abnormally dry or potentially drought conditions. Thinking about the stress mitigation under dry conditions, most fungicides that we use for corn and soybeans contain a strobilurin component, which we often think of as the preventative disease control component of those fungicide packages. But we also know that those strobilurins also have a positive impact on plant physiology, under stressful conditions. And so when we get into those dry or stressful conditions, it can be tempting to take that fungicide out of the plan, but we know, based on our data and our answer plot testing, that oftentimes it still pays off to make that fungicide application under stressful conditions, even when disease is relatively low within the field. Some of the other things I want to talk about are really the keys to success in a fungicide application, and Dan did a good job of talking about the first and foremost consideration, and that's understanding the hybrid characteristic or hybrid performance and the potential that those hybrids have to respond to a fungicide application. And certainly with soybeans, there are varieties that are potentially more susceptible to disease that might benefit from a fungicide a little more than others as well. But one of the first and foremost things I want to talk about is the application timing of a fungicide. With corn especially, we oftentimes think about that fungicide application, or we associate that fungicide application with the appearance of airplanes and helicopters, and really getting across that crop at or around tassel time when the crop is tall, and we need some of that aerial application equipment to make. And the reason for that timing around VTR1 or tasseling is that we're really trying to protect the grain fill period of corn, and when we make that fungicide application at or around tassel time, we're positioning it at a time that allows it to have residual activity well into that grain fill period. And based on our answer plot testing and just the experience of the industry, we would agree that R1 application or tassel time application is the best time to make a fungicide application in corn if you were to pick one time to make that application. But one of the other things that WinField United has been looking at over the last 2 years in our answer plots, as well as our innovation trials or on-farm trials, is the potential to make a pre-tassel application in corn, maybe as early as V10, when we can still get across that crop with ground application equipment. We know that in some areas, just based on topography or other features in the landscape, aerial application may not be available for those areas. And in a year like 2021, where potentially a lot of acres are going to get sprayed with a fungicide, we know that the aerial applicators are going to be strained to make those applications in a timely fashion. So if we have those situations where we can go out a little bit earlier with the ground rig, or potentially the farmer has the opportunity to make that application, we are seeing that in this case, these light green bars, we're seeing an increase in yield from that earlier application from a fungicide, particularly those products that have a longer residual activity associated with them. The other thing I want to talk about is some of our work in WinField United, looking at different fungicide products, and certainly fungicide product selection also factors into the yield increase that we might expect from a fungicide application, and the ROI associated with that fungicide application. There are many different fungicides to choose from in the market, and certainly some are more expensive than others. But one of the things I would encourage you to look at or think about is the types of diseases that you expect in your area. Do you have a high disease pressure, low disease pressure, and what types of diseases might you expect? Is it going to be tar spot, southern rust, these really aggressive diseases that come in late in the season? And then if it is, those types of disease situations where we have high disease and maybe tar spot or southern rust, I encourage you to look at some of these newer products that have multiple modes of action, cost a little bit more, but are going to provide that residual activity and those multiple modes of action to really, address those hard to control diseases like tar spot or southern rust. The next thing to focus on are maybe some of the things that we can put in the tank once we do make that fungicide application on either corn or soybeans or other crops for that matter. And first and foremost, what comes to mind for me is our MasterLock adjuvant. MasterLock is a proprietary adjuvant for WinField United, and many have probably heard of a similar related product called Interlock. Interlock's been around for a number of years, and it's a drift and deposition adjuvant, so it helps us to control drift, make sure that application stays on target, and then it helps to drive that application further into the canopy when we're trying to control weeds, or in the case of a fungicide application, trying to control disease. And so we've got a video here that hopefully we'll play, but we're showing an aerial application with water by itself, and then including Interlock as well. And even though we're talking about MasterLock, MasterLock is based on Interlock, but it contains a surfactant as well to help improve that coverage from the fungicide and help to improve the control from that fungicide application. So it looks like the video is not going to be able to run, but we've certainly got that video available in other sources if somebody wants to take a look at those. But if we can go on to the next slide, we'll take a look at the benefits of MasterLock. And first and foremost, when we include MasterLock with a fungicide application, we're trying to improve the activity of the fungicide, improve the disease control. And in this example, we've got an untreated check, so that was just no fungicide, no application, and over time, the soybeans, the Cercospora, we're seeing an increase in infected leaves or disease without the fungicide. When we include a fungicide, in this example, Preaxor, we're controlling disease. Disease is decreasing over time. And then when we combine the fungicide with MasterLock, it's a similar impact. We're decreasing disease, but we're doing it even more so compared to the fungicide by itself. And so that's all well and good. We're getting more product into the plant, but what is the impact that MasterLock has on yield? And we have another example here from soybeans. Looking at an insecticide application. And this example, just applying insecticide to soybeans by itself, we're getting an increase in yield of about 10 bushels per acre. And then by adding the adjuvant or the MasterLock and getting better coverage on the plant with this insecticide, we're increasing yield by about an additional 2 bushels per acre. Similarly on corn, our replicated testing in the last few years, we've seen that when we add MasterLock to a corn fungicide application, we're increasing yield by an average of about 5.6 bushels per acre. Over and beyond what the fungicide alone is providing to that corn crop and the yield of that corn crop. The last thing I want to mention is really related to some additional things that we can put in the tank beyond just the fungicide and the adjuvant. Certainly if we're going to get across that field, whether it's an aerial application or maybe a pre-tassel ground application, we do have the opportunity to include some other things, particularly nutrients that might be limiting to that crop under these different weather conditions and stress environments that we're experiencing in 2021. WinField United does a lot of tissue testing year in and year out, through our retail partners. And as we look at 2020 data as an example, and looking at zinc, manganese, and boron specifically, breaking that down by growth stage, we see some different trends or patterns for these different nutrients. In the case of zinc over there on the left side, we often talk about the importance of zinc early in the growing season, in furrow, on the seed, that type of thing. But really, as we get closer to tassel and grain fill, the importance of zinc is starting to decrease somewhat. But for manganese and boron, the importance of those nutrients, either stays high or increases as we get later in the season. And so I would encourage you to use tissue testing as a resource, or use some of this past data that we have available to think about, other nutrients that we can put in the tank to help impact this 2021 corn crop. And the last thing as we wrap up, Dan, is talking about the Impact RX program that you alluded to earlier in the broadcast. Over the years, WinField United has gathered all this data on fungicide performance, whether it's the impact of hybrid or fungicide product, fungicide timing, and as many of the data and the insights that we've shared here, during this broadcast. But we're starting to bring all this data together to provide some reassurance to the grower to make some of these applications that we recommend based on our data. And so one example is our service offering called Impact RX, which is specific to plant health or fungicide applications. Relying on that past data, but tying together the economics and the agronomics to provide a warranty or some assurance to the grower, if they choose to make that application, even when conditions may seem a little bit iffy, for a fungicide application, whether it's based on the weather or disease pressure, that type of thing. Certainly for the 2021 growing season, we're getting close to those applications and the windows closing to take advantage of this program. But if you're interested in Impact RX or any of the other WinField United service offerings, I would encourage you to visit with your local retailer, your local WinField United representative, and learn about how this can impact your farm for the 2022 growing season. So with that, Dan, I'll kick it back to you to take us home here this afternoon. You're on mute, Dan.
Sorry, but yeah, great information, Jason. A lot of information. I did notice here, there's a couple questions I'm going to run by you, Jason. So it looks like Hannah has sent in, does the timing of application change based on the fungicide product you choose?
Yep. So that's a great question. And really, we need to consider the residual activity of those products when we're thinking about the timing or the best timing. With some of the older fungicide products, we typically estimate about a 21-day period or 3-week period of residual activity. And so for those, we really want to target those to those tassel time applications so that residual activity takes us as far into grain fill as possible. With some of the newer products that maybe have a new triazole active ingredient or an SDHI active ingredient with a longer period of residual activity, we maybe position those a little bit earlier for those pre-tassel ground applications. And to kind of go along with that, I've also got a number of farmers that I'm working with that are trying a 2-pass fungicide system this year to kind of broaden the window of disease control in their corn crop. And in those types of situations, they're going with a little lower cost products earlier, that pre-tassel application, to provide some preventative disease control and take advantage of the plant health benefit or the strobilurin benefit, and then coming back later after tasseling with a better product or a more premium product for the disease control late season, whether that be southern rust, tar spot, or gray leaf spot, those types of diseases.
Okay, it looks like, I know we're getting short on time here. It looked like there was one more. Shelby sent in, should I take a tissue test before or after fungicide application to decide whether to put another product in?
Well, it definitely makes sense to take take a tissue test a few days ahead of that anticipated application, so that we've got time to physically take the sample, get it to the lab, get the data back, and make a decision. The tissue test recommendations can vary, field by field, based on what's been applied in that field, based on the soil type, that type of thing. So ideally, take that tissue test a few days ahead of time. But in situations where you're not set up to do tissue testing, or just we're running out of time, you can certainly take advantage of some of the past tissue test trends that WinField United has available for your local area, for your local state, to kind of guide you in the direction that you should go.
All right, thanks, Jason. Thanks, Hannah and Shelby. If you guys can hear it in the rain, I think we've get through, but we're getting close. So I did want to wrap up and say, that we appreciate everything. Please get your WinField United DSM if or visit WinFieldUnited.com for more information. Thank you.